going to get started. So good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to start this morning off on this amazing San Francisco day by thanking Assemblymember Phil Ting for his work in securing the crucial $10 million funding allocation at the state and for his overall support for our city's homelessness initiatives. I also want to thank Supervisors Ronan, Cohen, and Kim for their continued support of our navigation centers here in San Francisco and their willingness to open these crucial centers in their districts, and for being a part of the vote yesterday to accept and expend the $10 million of funding. I want to acknowledge Assemblymember David Chu for his steadfast commitment to tackling California's issues up in Sacramento and San Francisco's homeless issues as well. It is really great, and we are honored and lucky as a city to have great leaders such as Assembly Members Ting and Chu up at Sacramento representing the residents of San Francisco. We are all here today because we understand that our city, like other cities across the state of California, is undergoing a homelessness crisis. Our streets and sidewalks are filled with people who are struggling with mental health challenges, drug addiction, and poverty. This cannot be the status quo. It cannot be the new normal, and it is not something that we are going to accept here in San Francisco. Homelessness is a complex issue that requires a full gamut of solutions. We first have to prevent people from losing their homes, and we are doing such great work as a city under the direction of Jeff Kaczynski. When you think about the move-in assistance programs, the eviction prevention programs that we have as a city, and the flexible grants that we have that remove barriers to housing, we are doing that work here in San Francisco. And in the unfortunate circumstances when people do lose their homes, we have to pursue measures that are successful and proven here in the city of San Francisco, such as our Homeward Bound programs, such as our navigation centers that are working and truly saving the lives of people on our street every single day. These centers are a crucial part of our program in San Francisco of compassion, but common sense also in addressing homelessness. We cannot allow our residents, those that are living on our streets, to live in unsanitary, inhumane tent encampments. Nobody is getting better by sleeping in tent encampments at night. Nobody. We have to do everything we can as a city to get people off the streets, into shelter and housing, onto their own 2 feet, and into better lives. Since our first navigation center opened in 2015 in San Francisco, we have taken over 2,000 people off the streets. With the help of this $10 million in funding, we are now set to open 2 new navigation centers here in San Francisco, which will collectively provide more than 250 new beds, helping our goal as a city to move 1,000 people off the streets this winter. These are impressive numbers, but our navigation centers and our efforts as a city are not about numbers, they are about individuals. They are about helping those individuals that are on our streets. As I've said before, these are our mothers and our fathers, brothers and sisters. We need to do everything we can to help to get them onto better lives. And we are lucky to be joined today, and I'm honored to have standing by me John. And I want to tell you about John's story. John was served here at the Dog Patch, and this morning got some amazing news. Since moving to the Bay Area 19 years ago, John has experienced homelessness and drug abuse challenges. But last year, he was put in touch with the Dog Patch Navigation Center, and his life has since turned around. He's been a model resident. He's acquired all the necessary documents, Social Security card, mental health certification, his birth certificate, applied for every program, including receiving his CalFresh benefits. He kept all his scheduled appointments with his case manager and complied with all scheduled mental health meetings. And all that hard work and commitment has now paid off. Just this morning, John told me, he was notified that he has been given a place in a supportive housing unit here in San Francisco. And here's the notice.
Just got it.
This is what we're talking about. This is the benefit of our navigation centers. Taking individuals who are living homeless on our streets, people like John, who we need to embrace as a city. And now we have the proof. And now John is going to be into housing. That is what we need to do in San Francisco time and time again. It's the reason why we continue to support our navigation centers, why we continue to thank all of the staff that are here today that work in these navigation centers that John has worked with so closely over the past few months. And these are the reasons why we are so grateful to Assemblymember Ting for his hard work in Sacramento to secure the funding for these 2 new navigation centers here in San Francisco. And to all our other partners at the state level, to everybody on the Board of Supervisors here in San Francisco for working together on these initiatives. It is what we need to do in the city of San Francisco and is what we are doing in the city of San Francisco. And there's no better proof and there's no better satisfaction than hearing the stories and seeing that piece of paper with John's name on it, and that we are seeing individual by individual get into housing and onto a better life. So with that, I want to introduce our great partner in Sacramento and the person who has worked to secure this new $10 million in funding for our 2 new navigation centers, Assemblymember Phil Ting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank you personally. You've been fighting on this issue during your entire time in office and during your entire time on the board. It's been your #1 issue. I also wanted to thank the 3 other supervisors, Supervisors Cohen and Ronan and Kim. They have been incredible advocates, just tireless advocates on this issue, and just every day having a laser-like focus. I also wanted to acknowledge my partner in Sacramento, who's a housing warrior, and we've been working up there to not just fight homelessness, but really to tackle this housing crisis that's been really affecting us up and down the state. I know Jeff Sparks is here from Senator Wiener's office as well, or it's hiding in the back. Thank you, Jeff, for being here. Senator Wiener couldn't be here. They're at a Senate Democratic Caucus retreat today, unfortunately. But as we all know, homelessness is a crisis, not just in San Francisco, but really up and down the state. We've talked about 7,500 people who are homeless today, a couple thousand people every single night on our streets in every single neighborhood. I live in the West Side, and the West Side is not immune to homelessness at all. If you go take a walk through or go run through Golden Gate Park, you see a number of folks who have used that as their nightly bedroom. I had a homeless person who decided to sleep in my car for a little while because they were looking for shelter when it was parked in front of my own house. So this is an issue that has touched every single one of us, and I totally agree with the mayor. We cannot accept this as the new normal. LA has a homeless population of around 40 to 50,000 people. That would be a medium-sized city here in the Bay Area. And we know that this is not just a city problem. It's not a county problem. This is now a state problem. It's a federal problem. And we know at California, we have to do our part and step up to the plate. That's why I was so proud to work with the supervisors, the mayor's office, and making sure that we got $10 million for navigation centers, for housing that is tied to services, for housing that is really meant to not just be temporary shelter, but shelter that's going to move people like John onto more permanent solutions so that they don't have to choose where to sleep tonight, where to put their belongings, that they can actually have a semblance of a life moving forward. And that's why I'm so excited to work with a city that really gets it. This is something that's not just happening in San Francisco. We had a number of colleagues. We funded navigation centers in Elk Grove, in Merced, in Modesto County. So again, places that didn't have homelessness a couple years ago, all of a sudden they're fighting to get services because people are popping up on their doorstep, in their streets, in their parks, and they're looking for help. And so we hear that message in Sacramento. We're going to be working very hard again this year to tackle this issue, which is, again, a statewide and a national issue. And we cannot accept that we have people on the streets every single night counting that as their bedroom. We have to do something about it. We cannot accept that as an alternative or really as something that is okay to happen in San Francisco or really anywhere in California. So with that, let me turn it over to my colleague, Assemblymember David Chu, who chairs our Housing Committee and has been a real partner in this effort.
David, let me get this. Sure.
Don't want to read your notes.
Francis. Good morning. First of all, let me apologize for being late. I had an only in San Francisco experience this morning of my first interview with my son, who's not yet 2 years old, for nursery school. So I'm sorry about that. But I also want to say today I know in part is a celebration for John. And I want to congratulate you for what we have just learned. But we are here because there are still thousands of San Franciscans, men, women, children, families. There are hundreds of thousands of Californians who are suffering every day on the streets of our Golden State. And there is so much more that we need to do to address this. Phil Ting referred to the fact that this is not just a homelessness crisis in San Francisco, it's a homelessness crisis in California. When I first went to the legislature now in 2014, we had the highest rates of homelessness in the country here in California. 20% of America's homeless here in our state. Today, that statistic is 25%. In 2014, 1 out of 3 chronically homeless Americans live in California. Today, that statistic is 42%. The crisis that has been here in our city is now all over the state. We read about hepatitis A outbreaks in San Diego, about E. coli outbreaks in the American River near the Sacramento Delta. We read about the pain and suffering that we are seeing everywhere, every corner of our state. I want to take a moment and thank all of the men and women behind us who've really come together with this, starting first and foremost with Phil Ting. It's been an amazing partnership to have him as our budget chair, as I've worked with him as our housing committee chair, really trying to move forward finally an agenda that addresses not just our housing crisis, but our homelessness crisis, as well as all of the supervisors, our mayor, our department heads, our CBO leaders who are moving this forward. San Francisco is leading the way when it comes to pioneering this incredible model of navigation centers, and that is so incredibly important. All that being said, we know the work is not going to end here. Last year, we were fortunate that we moved forward a historic housing package that, for the first time, creates a permanent source of funding for housing. This year, half of that money is going to address homelessness around the state of California. And I also want to thank Governor Brown for signing a bill that I had last year, AB 74, Housing for a Healthy California, which pilots the idea that supportive housing after navigation centers is the most effective way for us to take care and take folks off the streets. But that being said, the work is not ending. I know every elected official here is continuing to strive to make sure that someday, we don't have anyone who's homeless on our streets. I know Phil Ting and I, in the coming weeks, we have more things that we're going to say on this topic. But again, I just want to thank all of you for being part of the compassion that is the city of St. Francis. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hillary Ronan. I'm the supervisor of District 9, which includes the Mission District, which has been plagued by tent encampments for many years. I want to say that, as we've seen in John's case, the only thing that really solves homelessness is housing. But the thing that solves street homelessness, people living in tent encampments on our street in dangerous conditions and in squalor, are navigation centers. And I am so proud of the work that I did together with Assemblymember Phil Ting when I first got into office a year ago, and I was able to secure the temporary navigation center at 1515 South Van Ness, which allowed us to reduce the number of tents in the Mission from at a high before the navigation center opened of 246 tents to today, or actually yesterday, 40 tents in the Mission. That work was only possible because we opened that temporary navigation center. I did that together with Mohammed Nuru, who has been just a champion of navigation centers in our city, as well as with Jeff Kaczynski, the director of the Mayor's Office of Homelessness and Supportive Services. We opened that navigation center to solve the tent encampment crisis in the Mission, but we know we only had that center for a certain amount of time. So I went to our incredible Assemblymember Phil Ting, who is the chair of the Budget Committee, and I said, please help us get the funds to find a replacement navigation center for when this one closes. And he immediately said, absolutely, we cannot only have temporary solutions, we need permanent solutions to this crisis on our street. And he went and was able to obtain a record amount of money for San Francisco to deal with our homelessness crisis, $10 million, which is now allowing us to open not just one navigation center when 1515 South Van Ness closes down, but two. One will be at 125 Bayshore, and the other will be at Division Circle on a Division and South Van Ness. So I just wanted to thank Assemblymember for just really stepping up to the plate in unprecedented ways. And I also want to thank my two colleagues on the board, Malia Cohen, who unfortunately had to go to another appointment, who's the supervisor of District 10, where 125 Bayshore will be, and where we are right now, the Dog Patch Navigation Center, and Supervisor Kim, who is the supervisor of District 6 and actually hosts the vast majority of homeless services, both shelters, navigation centers, and other types of interventions in her district, District 6. Together, District 6, 9, and 10 are the three districts that take the bulk of this problem and offer up the solutions in our city. We do want to see more geographic equity of where homeless services are placed throughout the city, and we'll be looking for that as we all work together to achieve our former Mayor Ed Leave's dream of adding 1,000 new navigation center beds in our city, so we can truly once and for all end the street encampment crisis that plagues all of San Francisco. And with that, I will turn it over to Supervisor Kim. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Ronan. Many of the comments have been made, but I do just want to thank Assemblymember Ting and Assemblymember Chu for their leadership in Sacramento. I have long said this, but homelessness is a statewide issue. It is not just a San Francisco issue, and we will never solve homelessness if we treat it just as a regional issue. We absolutely must have a statewide solution. And as was mentioned previously, we host close to 20 to 25% of the entire nation's homeless count in the state. And so I just want to thank both of them for leading the first grant ever for navigation centers here in San Francisco, which will get us 25% of the way there to Mayor Edley's goal of getting 1,000 people off of our streets into navigation centers. I want to thank our residents in District 6, 9, and 10 that have been incredibly generous and compassionate and understanding that in order to help us get people off the streets, that we need to place shelters, services, and navigation centers in their neighborhoods by their homes. Certainly in the district where I represent, where Supervisor Ronan mentioned, we see 50% of the homeless count and the vast majority of all of our homeless services and shelter beds. I want to thank our residents for always being open-minded and saying yes to more navigation centers and shelters instead of saying, no, we don't want to be a part of the solution. And I also want to recognize the incredible staff that do this work on the front lines every day. This work is incredibly difficult. And I just know that we have some of the members of Episcopal Community Services that's running the Navigation Center behind us here today. And I was actually reminded by two of the staff members that the night that I stayed at Next Door Shelter in the Tenderloin, that they were staffing the night that I was there. And I have to say that everyone treated me with incredible dignity and respect, not knowing who I was, that I was a member of the Board of Supervisors, and how important it is to create an environment that creates more trust and respect and not less, because people won't accept services if we don't do it the right way. Finally, as Supervisor Ronan mentioned, I do want to thank my two sister colleagues in 9 and 10 who are accepting more shelters and services. In fact, not are just accepting it, but actually fighting for it and asking for it. We cannot solve this issue if the entire city isn't a part of that. And we have to make sure that we are addressing homelessness both as an economic issue, but also as a public health issue as well. And so we have to continue to make sure that we are serving our population, that we're providing medically appropriate services so that we can help more folks end up in supportive housing like John here today. So thank you very much to everyone. This is a really major effort, and this is going to go a long way towards us meeting our goals. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Jeff Kositsky with the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing. Thank you all for being here today. And I just wanted to point out how difficult it is to get these centers opened and how difficult it is to operate them. And it really does take this entire city coming together to make this happen. I want to thank the neighbors of the Dog Patch. I don't know if anybody is here. The Dog Patch Neighborhood Association has been incredibly supportive and helpful. And then want to also thank the staff of ECS and also Providence Foundation. Providence is also here on site providing services, kind of cooperating the site along with ECS, as well as our partners from the Human Services Agency and the Department of Public Health, who I believe are here today. They're also providing services, enrolling people in benefits and providing them with medical care. Want to thank the port. This is on port property, and the port was very gracious to work with us to make sure that we were able to secure this property for the next 3 years to operate the navigation center here. And also the folks who are standing up here. Mohammed Nuru and the Department of Public Works helped identify the site, made sure it was going to work, designed the site, and they did just an amazing job. This is a beautiful facility, really, really well thought out. And then they built the site. And made sure that it got built fast, probably in record time, despite multiple challenges that we had with utilities and other things. But they just did an amazing job and deserve a ton of thanks and credit for this work, and also their ongoing work helping keep our streets clean and working with us around addressing tent encampments. Supervisor Ronan has been just a fierce champion for navigation centers in her district and citywide, and helped make this funding possible by working with Assemblyman Ting, and also to make sure that it got used in the best way possible in terms of the navigation center, both the sites and the size of the sites. And Assemblyman Ting, thank you so much. I don't even know how to thank you. 250 new beds are going to serve 1,000 people a year. Thanks to you and thanks to your advocacy. We would not have had the funds to do this without your advocacy. That's 1,000 people a year that we're going to be able to help, thanks to you and to your leadership, and to Mohammed and Supervisor Ronan. Mayor Farrell has picked up the torch from Mayor Lee, and is carried on, is focused on fulfilling his desire and his legacy, and our goal to get 1,000 people off of the streets, more than we would have. Normally we serve about 7,000 people in shelter every year. We're housing about 2,000 people a year, and now we're going to be able to assist an additional 1,000 above that, thanks to Mayor Lee's vision and to Mayor Farrell's support and in pushing us to move this forward. Assemblyman Chu is also really doing the important work, because homelessness is about housing. And he has taken incredible leadership at the state level to help build more affordable and supportive housing, and housing at all levels, because at the end of the day, as has already been said here before, navigation centers don't solve homelessness. Housing is what solves homelessness, and we thank you and we'll continue to support you. We also have Del Seymour up here. Unsung hero. He is the head of the local homeless coordinating board, which helps oversee some of the funding that we have in the city for homelessness, and also is the director of Code Tenderloin, and formerly homeless himself, and also a fierce advocate for individuals who are experiencing homelessness. And Supervisor Kim, I believe, had to leave. She has also been incredibly supportive and has been really amazing around the issue of women experiencing homelessness, has advocated for us to expand services for women who are homeless, which we are going to do both at a NAV center that will be opening up soon, that will have a special section for women, as well as a new program that we're opening up to serve women who are homeless and also who are pregnant. And last but certainly not least is Supervisor Cohen, who's the chair of the Budget Committee and has also been supportive of facilities opening in her district, this one and another one that we're going to be opening up, and also has been working with our department to make sure that we have the funding we need to move forward and achieve our goals as a city to reduce and hopefully end homelessness in San Francisco. Thank you all very much for being here tonight. We appreciate you all being here, and I think we can, folks want to take a look at the NAV Center a few at a time. We can do a walkthrough if you'd like to see the site. And thank you again.